Marcus Chen's hands trembled as he stared at the newspaper clipping, the paper yellow and brittle with age. The headline screamed at him through 3 decades of silence. Montgomery heir, age 2, vanishes from family estate. The grainy photograph showed a toddler with dark curls and bright eyes. Eyes, his face, him. Just 2 weeks ago, Marcus had stood on stage accepting the Tech Innovator of the Year award, his company valued at $5 billion. He'd thanked his father, Richard Chen, the humble mechanic who'd raised him alone, who'd worked himself to exhaustion to give Marcus every opportunity. The audience had given them a standing ovation. Richard had cried. Now in the dusty attic of Richard's old house, Marcus held evidence that his entire life was a lie. His phone buzzed. Richard calling. Marcus stared at the name on the screen, his thumb hovering over the answer button. The man who taught him to ride a bike, who sat with him through every nightmare, who mortgaged his house to fund Marcus's first startup. That man was a kidnapper. Marcus grabbed the metal box and drove straight to Richard's apartment across town. He didn't call ahead, didn't rehearse what he'd say. He just needed to see Richard's face when confronted with the truth. Richard opened the door in his bathrobe, his face lighting up at the sight of Marcus. "Son! What a wonderful surprise. I was just making tea and—" He stopped. His eyes dropped to the box in Marcus's hands and the color drained from his face. Oh God, you found it." Marcus pushed past him into the small apartment. 33 years, Richard. 33 years you kept this from me." Richard's legs seemed to give out. He sank onto the couch, his hands covering his face. "I knew this day would come. I've been waiting for it since the moment I took you." "Took me?" Marcus slammed the box onto the coffee table, articles and photographs spilling out. "You mean kidnapped me? From my real family, the Montgomerys? Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Every single day," Richard whispered. "I know exactly what I've done. Every single day for 33 years. Marcus wanted to rage, to scream, to call the police, but something in Richard's voice made him pause. He'd never heard his father sound so broken. "Then tell me why. Make me understand how someone could do this." Richard's hands shook as he reached for an old photograph on the side table. A little boy, maybe 3 years old, grinning at the camera. This was Daniel. "My son, your brother, I suppose, in another life." Marcus had never heard Richard mention a Daniel, never seen this photograph. "I was the Montgomery family chauffeur," Richard continued, his voice hollow. "Had been for 5 years. Good pay, steady work. My wife Margaret and I were happy. We had Daniel. Then one day Margaret was driving him to daycare. A drunk driver ran a red light." Richard's voice cracked. "Daniel died instantly. Margaret left me 3 days after the funeral. Said she couldn't look at me without seeing him. I fell apart." Marcus felt his anger wavering, but he forced himself to stay focused. "That doesn't justify—" "Let me finish, please." Richard looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. "A week after Daniel died, I was driving Mrs. Montgomery to a charity event. You were in the back seat, 2 years old. You'd been fussy, so she'd given you to me to hold while she took a phone call. You fell asleep in my arms, and I looked down at you, and something in my broken mind saw Daniel, saw my second chance. The Montgomerys had 3 other children. They had everything. I had nothing. So you stole me." Marcus's voice was ice. "So I stole you," Richard admitted. "Mrs. Montgomery went into the venue. I was supposed to wait in the car with you until she was done. Instead, I drove away. I drove for 12 hours straight, changed our names, started over in a different state, and I became your father." Marcus paced the small living room, his mind racing. "You watched them search for me. You saw the news coverage, the press conferences, the reward money, and you did nothing." "I did worse than nothing," Richard said quietly. "I collected the ransom. $250,000. They left it at a drop point, and I picked it up. I told myself I'd need it to take care of you, to give you a good life. But really I was just a coward who wanted to justify the unjustifiable." The room spun. "The 50,000 in the box. All that's left. The rest went to your education, your first apartment, your startup capital when you needed 50,000 to launch your company." Richard met his eyes. Your entire empire, Marcus, started with ransom money, with stolen money. I made you complicit in your own kidnapping. Marcus felt sick. Every success, every achievement, traced back to a crime. I need to leave. Marcus, wait. Don't call me that. Marcus spun around. Is that even my real name? Alexander, Richard whispered. Alexander James Montgomery. But you became Marcus to me. You became my son. I was never your son. I was your victim. Marcus grabbed the box and headed for the door. I loved you. Richard's voice cracked with desperation. I know I had no right to. I know it was selfish and wrong and monstrous. But I loved you every single day. When you took your first steps, when you graduated high school, when you made your first million, I was so proud. I am so proud of who you became. Marcus stopped at the door, his hand on the knob. Without turning around, he said, the man I became was built on a lie. Everything I am is stolen. He opened the door. Stay away from me, and pray I don't call the police tonight. He left Richard sobbing on the couch and drove home in a daze. In his penthouse apartment overlooking the city, Marcus poured himself a drink and pulled up his laptop. He typed Montgomery family into the search bar. The Montgomery Properties empire spread across the screen. Real estate moguls worth billions. James and Catherine Montgomery, now in their 60s, still ran the company. 3 children were listed. Victoria, 42, head of acquisitions. Jonathan, 39, chief financial officer. And Alexander James Montgomery, age 35, status, missing, presumed deceased. Marcus clicked on a news article from 10 years ago. Montgomery family holds memorial for missing son. The photograph showed James and Catherine Montgomery standing beside a small monument, their faces carved with grief that time hadn't healed. They never had another child to replace the one who vanished. Marcus found their address within minutes. Old money, old estate, the kind of house that had names instead of numbers. He should call first. He should prepare. Instead, he got in his car and drove through the night. Dawn was breaking when he pulled up to the iron gates of Montgomery Manor. He pressed the intercom button, his heart hammering. Yes? A woman's voice, elegant but tired. My name is Marcus Chen. I need to speak with Catherine and James Montgomery. It's about Alexander. A long pause, then, security will escort you to the house. The gates swung open. A security guard met him at the circular driveway and led him to the front door. Before Marcus could knock, it flew open. Catherine Montgomery stood in the doorway, wearing a silk robe, her hair disheveled, mascara smeared beneath her eyes as if she'd been crying. She stared at Marcus, her hand flying to her mouth. James, she screamed. James, come here, now. Footsteps thundered down a grand staircase. James Montgomery appeared, his shirt half-buttoned, reading glasses perched on his nose. He froze when he saw Marcus. It's him, Catherine whispered. Look at his eyes. Look at his face. It's our baby. We need a DNA test, James said, but his voice shook. We've had false leads before, Catherine. We can't. I already did one. Marcus pulled the results from his jacket pocket. I'm Alexander James Montgomery, your son. Catherine's legs buckled. James caught her, and they both sank onto the marble floor of the entryway, holding each other and sobbing. Marcus stood awkwardly, unsure what to do. These were strangers who were his parents. 33 years, James finally managed. 33 years we've searched. Every lead, every tip, every psychic and charlatan who promised they could find you. We never stopped. Catherine reached up, her hand trembling as she touched Marcus's face. You're so beautiful. You're so grown up. I missed everything. Your first day of school, your first girlfriend, your graduation, everything. The pain in her voice cut through Marcus's confusion. I'm sorry, he said, though he wasn't sure what he was apologizing for. Sorry? Catherine pulled him down into a fierce hug. You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing. You were taken from us, stolen. By Richard Chen, Marcus said quietly. Your former chauffeur. James's face went hard. That man is still alive. He raised me. He's been my father for 33 years. He's a criminal, James spat. A kidnapper who destroyed our family. Where is he? I want him arrested today. This morning, Marcus felt a strange, uncomfortable loyalty rise in his chest. It's complicated. Complicated? James stood up, his voice rising. He stole our child. He watched us suffer for over 3 decades. What's complicated about that? James, please, Catherine said, still holding Marcus's hand like she was afraid he'd disappear. Let's just be grateful Alexander is home. We can deal with Richard Chen later. They moved to a sitting room that looked like it belonged in a museum. Catherine sat close to Marcus, touching his arm every few seconds as if to confirm he was real. James paced, his jaw clenched. Tell us everything, Catherine said. What was your life like? Were you happy? Did he hurt you? He never hurt me, Marcus admitted. He was a good father in many ways. He worked hard, sacrificed for me, supported my dreams. With our money, James exploded. Did you know he collected the ransom? $250,000. Money we borrowed. Money we would have given anything to pay if it meant getting you back. He took it and disappeared. Marcus's stomach churned. I know, he told me. And he used it to raise me, to fund my education, to help me start my company. Your company? Catherine's eyes widened. What do you do? I run a tech company. It's worth about $5 billion. The room fell silent. Catherine and James stared at him. $5 billion, James repeated slowly. You're Marcus Chen. The Marcus Chen. I read about you in the Wall Street Journal last month. Built on ransom money, Marcus said bitterly. Built on your pain. No, Catherine said firmly. Built by you, your intelligence, your hard work. That monster may have given you the seed money, but you made it grow. I want to give it back, Marcus said suddenly. All of it. Every penny that came from that ransom. With interest. It's about $8 million now. Keep it, James said. Use it for something good. Donate it. Start a foundation to help other families with missing children, but don't punish yourself for his crimes. Marcus felt tears burning his eyes. I don't know who I am anymore. Am I Marcus Chen, the self-made billionaire? Or am I Alexander Montgomery, the kidnapped heir? Everything I thought I knew about myself is a lie. You're our son, Catherine said, pulling him close. That's all that matters. You're home. But it didn't feel like home. The mansion felt cold and empty despite its luxury. Catherine kept calling him Alexander, a name that felt foreign in his mouth. James talked about him joining Montgomery Properties, taking his rightful place in the family business, as if Marcus's own company didn't exist. I need time, Marcus said after 2 hours of overwhelming conversation. This is all too much. Of course, Catherine said, though her grip on his hand tightened. But you'll come back? You'll visit us? We have so much time to make up for. I will, Marcus promised, though he wasn't sure he meant it. As he drove away from Montgomery Manor, his phone rang. Victoria Montgomery, his sister. She'd heard the news. Is it really you? She asked, her voice tight. DNA says yes. Then welcome home, little brother. Dad wants to call a press conference tomorrow. He wants to announce your return and press charges against Richard Chen. He's talking about a life sentence. Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. That's not his decision to make. Yes, it is. He's the victim. We all are. I'm the victim, Marcus shouted. I'm the one whose life was stolen, and I get to decide what happens next. Victoria was quiet for a moment. You sound angry at us. I'm angry at everyone, Marcus admitted. I'm angry at Richard for kidnapping me. I'm angry at you for wanting revenge. I'm angry at myself for still caring about the man who ruined all our lives. Do you, Victoria asked softly, still care about him? Marcus thought about Richard's face when he'd left, broken and crying. Thought about every birthday cake, every school play Richard had attended, every late night helping Marcus with homework. Yes, he whispered. God help me. Yes. Then you need to figure out who you really are, Victoria said. Because you can't be both Marcus Chen and Alexander Montgomery. You have to choose. She hung up. Marcus drove aimlessly, his mind spinning. His phone buzzed constantly. Messages from the Montgomerys. Messages from his company's board wanting to know why their CEO was unreachable. Messages from Richard, begging for a chance to explain. And then, a text from an unknown number. Turn on the news. Marcus pulled over and opened a news app on his phone. The headline blazed across the screen. Tech billionaire Marcus Chen revealed as missing Montgomery heir. Someone had leaked the story. Within hours, it was everywhere. The press camped outside Marcus's penthouse, outside Montgomery Manor, outside Richard's apartment. Reporters screamed questions. Photographers swarmed. The story went viral across every platform. Marcus's phone exploded with calls. His investors, his competitors, his friends who weren't really friends, now that they knew his fortune was built on ransom money. The board of directors called an emergency meeting. They wanted answers. They wanted to know if the company was legally compromised. Your initial capital came from criminal proceeds, the lead counsel said bluntly. That could open us to lawsuits, investigations. We need to do damage control immediately. The company is clean, Marcus insisted. That $50,000 was 30 years ago. Everything since has been legitimate. Public perception doesn't care about technicalities, the counsel replied. You're the CEO whose entire origin story is a lie. Investors are spooked. Within 24 hours, Marcus's company stock dropped 15%. Business partners withdrew from deals. Sponsors canceled contracts. Everything Marcus had built was crumbling because of a crime he didn't commit. And then James Montgomery called a press conference without consulting Marcus. Marcus watched from his penthouse as his biological father stood before dozens of cameras and reporters. Today, I'm announcing that my son, Alexander Montgomery, has been found after 33 years. He was kidnapped by our former employee, Richard Chen, who is still at large. We are calling for his immediate arrest and prosecution to the fullest extent of the law. No, Marcus breathed. No, no, no. His phone rang. Richard. Marcus, please. They're outside my building. The police are here. I'm going to be arrested. Marcus closed his eyes. He could let it happen. Let Richard face justice for what he'd done. It would be easy. It would be right. But 33 years of memories flashed through his mind. Richard teaching him to tie his shoes. Richard staying up all night when Marcus had pneumonia. Richard crying with pride when Marcus got his first major investment. I'll be right there, Marcus said. He arrived just as police were leading Richard out in handcuffs. The old man looked small and broken, nothing like the father who'd always seemed invincible to Marcus. Reporters mobbed them, shouting questions. Mr. Chen! Did you kidnap Marcus Chen? Mr. Montgomery! Are you going to testify against your kidnapper? Marcus pushed through the crowd. Wait! Everyone froze. Cameras swung toward him. I have something to say, Marcus announced, and I need everyone to hear it. The crowd pressed in, eager. This was the moment. This was where Marcus would declare his loyalty to his real family, denounce his kidnapper, choose Alexander Montgomery over Marcus Chen. Instead, Marcus said, My name is Marcus Alexander Montgomery Chen. Both parts of my life are real. Both families are mine. And what happens next is my choice, not yours. The crowd erupted in questions, but Marcus held up his hand. Richard Chen committed a terrible crime. He stole me from a family that loved me, and they suffered unimaginably. That's a fact. But he also raised me, loved me, and shaped who I am today. That's also a fact. The truth isn't simple, and neither is justice. What are you saying? A reporter shouted. I'm saying that I won't let this destroy any more lives. I'm donating $8 million to organizations that help find missing children and support affected families. I'm splitting my time between both families, getting to know my biological parents and siblings while maintaining my relationship with Richard. And I'm asking the district attorney to consider rehabilitation and restorative justice instead of maximum sentencing. The crowd went wild. James Montgomery called immediately, furious. You're defending your kidnapper? I'm acknowledging reality, Marcus said. He's guilty. He should face consequences. But destroying him won't give us back the 33 years we lost. It won't heal anything. This is insane, James said. Catherine agrees with me. We're hiring our own attorneys. That's your right, Marcus replied. But I'm the victim here, and my voice matters too. He hung up and turned to Richard, who was still in handcuffs, tears streaming down his face. I'm not saying I forgive you, Marcus said quietly. I'm not even sure I can. But I'm saying I'm not going to pretend you were only a monster because you weren't. You were my father, in every way that matters except biology. And I have to find a way to live with both truths. I don't deserve your mercy, Richard sobbed. No, Marcus agreed. You don't. But I deserve peace. And that means accepting that my life isn't a story with heroes and villains. It's just complicated and messy and human. 6 months later, Richard Chen was sentenced to 3 years in a minimum security facility with parole eligibility. The Montgomerys were furious but eventually accepted Marcus's decision. Marcus split his time between both families, awkward and uncomfortable, trying to build bridges where there had only been wreckage. On a Saturday afternoon, Marcus visited Richard in prison. He brought photographs from a recent family dinner where both families had met for the first time. It had been tense and painful, but they'd made it through. Richard stared at the photos, tears in his eyes. You brought them together? We're trying, Marcus said. It's not easy. James still can't look at you in photos without getting angry. Catherine cries every time she thinks about the years she missed. But they're trying to understand that hating you doesn't change the past. I don't deserve this, Richard whispered. Maybe not, Marcus said, but I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me. I spent 33 years thinking I knew who I was. Now I know the truth is more complicated. I'm Marcus and Alexander. I'm your son and their son. And instead of choosing, I'm going to be both. Richard reached across the table, and after a moment's hesitation, Marcus took his hand. Thank you, Richard said, for not becoming bitter, for staying with who you are despite everything. Marcus thought about that as he drove home. Who was he? He still didn't have a complete answer. But maybe that was okay. Maybe identity wasn't something you discover. Maybe it was something you build, piece by piece, from both the lies and the truths of your life. He pulled into his driveway and smiled. His wife was waiting, 8 months pregnant with their first child. They'd already chosen names. For a boy, Daniel Richard Montgomery Chen. For a girl, Catherine Rose Montgomery Chen. Some stories don't have neat endings. Some questions don't have clear answers. But Marcus had learned that family wasn't about blood or history or even truth. It was about the people you chose to love and the grace you offered when love got complicated. And in the end, that was enough. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever discovered something that changed everything you thought you knew about yourself? Let us know, and don't forget to like this video to help others find this story. Thanks for watching until the end.